thanks for coming, y'all. I know it's kind of cold outside, and I was expecting kind of about this amount, which is good. So it's been an interesting week. You know, weather's been a lot up and down, but thanks for coming. Before I get into me, since it's such a small room, I figured we go around. Y'all have already been talking to each other a little bit, but if y'all spend a couple sentences, just tell me who you are, what you do, and what brought you here, and what you're hoping to kind of get out of this. So it helps me a little bit, kind of phrase these stories that I'll tell you in a little bit. So we can start with you, man.
Cool. Andrew Schuster, co-founder of Further Insights. We're an interactive media company. I'm also in a band. I'm a lifelong musician, so when I saw this is right up my alley. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
My name is Alfred Martinez. I live in Corpus Christi. I'm in the first cohort of Founder Institute. I came for the event prior to this and found out about this, so decided to stay.
I'm in a ska group. No, I'm joking. No, basically, I have a lot of musician friends.
What's your name?
Nobody could make it.
For the room.
Okay. Nobody could make it, actually, because everybody's at work. Their real day job. But also taking notes for them. But I thought that it would be interesting, guerrilla marketing, kind of to put penises everywhere in Austin. Anyways, it's a long story, but guerrilla marketing is important for that.
It's definitely.
Walk out with your dick so.
I'm
There you go. Plug in. Might need to do that in a minute.
I'm Jeremy. Martin's a friend of mine. Just wanted to come check out the talk. Been in music for about 14 years. Managed around 23 bands. Based in Los Angeles, here in Austin. I have a guy in New York too. Just wanted to come check out Martin's talk here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks, man. Also got a new showcase at the Continental every first Sunday coming up.
Yeah. Check it out if you aren't doing anything.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm Steve Ward. I started my dream business about 2 years ago, which is a sailing charter company. I'm actually a co-work person down below. I sit here at Galvanized, but yeah, I like the idea of the guerrilla marketing. I read the guerrilla marketing book, I don't know, from whenever it was printed 20 years ago, 25. But yeah, I'm always doing a little do-it-yourself marketing, so I wanted to learn some more.
Cool.
I'm Kelsey Brennan. I'm a graphic designer by trade, but I focus mainly on developing pitch decks for startups looking for funding. So just storytelling in general and marketing all ties together.
Awesome. Well, y'all all came to the right place for various different reasons, but hopefully you'll gain a little bit of kind of where I'm coming from in this world of guerrilla marketing. And again, it's such an interesting term. So you think about it, guerrilla warfare. I think of Colombia and Contra and all that stuff. That's really where it started. Just always being prepared. I have a couple ground rules that I'll lay out, but now thank you all for sharing a little bit. We'll talk about me, figure out why I should be giving this talk, and learn a little more about my background and kind of how I got to this point talking about this stuff now. And I'll share 3 stories. 2 of them will be to me. 1 will be more of an inspiration, and hopefully you'll see patterns and maybe be able to apply them in some way, shape, or form with whatever work you're doing or helping what others do. So, who the hell am I? My name is Martin Martinez, if you can roll your R's. Most people just call me Martine. It's more fun to say after a shot of mezcal. Been in Texas my whole life. Traveled a little bit, but I'm 7th generation Texan, depending on which parent I ask. I came up here in 2005 for UT, took an extra year, graduated in 2010, studied everything I could. Was an architecture student, didn't really do anything with it, obviously. I also studied the classics through Italian language, got picked up a business minor while I was at it too. Spent a lot of time there. No, I really didn't want to go. But when I got out, I was already kind of dabbling in the entertainment industry as a bartender, a bar manager, Was also part of this Facebook generation where everybody was starting to get on this. I was seeing this convergence that, holy crap, I don't know what marketing is yet, but I can market businesses on Facebook. So I became one of the first 5 inside sales reps there, pre-IPO. You know, we were children, managing children. We really had no idea what the hell we were doing, but it was a very fast and pivotal time in the company's life cycle, you know, before they were this behemoth that they are now, to, and especially for me and the people I was around. Everyone was brilliant, beautiful, driven, and trying to change the world for all the little crap that we did. Again, very, very awesome time. Definitely learned a lot, and I've applied a lot of those rules that I discovered there to everything I do now. It also gifted me the journey of going to Google right after that. So once projects that I was working on, building inside sales tools for local businesses at Facebook, I got to apply those at a larger scale at Google. And really, that's what really kind of jump-started my career after that. You know, I could really do a lot. And in between all this too, I was having friends in the startup world here in town. This was, you know, 2010 to 2012. Come to me and have ideas. And I was already kind of dabbling with this stuff before I left Google at the time. And one of which I really took off once our projects at Google were over. And that's kind of where we'll focus on some of my stories today. But, you know, other than that, you know, I'm a serial entrepreneur. Definitely worked on, you know, over a dozen projects here in town. You know, a couple that I've really stamped my name to and try to build out. You know, I'm a conference, event, you know, and concert producer. So again, I have kind of one foot in the entertainment industry here. I also have one foot in the tech and startup world. So it's that's led me to my newest company, A-Player Media. We are a creative and event production outfit, kind of really focused at this intersection. So again, video, recording, all that stuff, yeah, that's where we're all about it. Producing interesting content. We're still really figuring out where we're going to fit in all of this, but this year has been really awesome in kind of building that network out and understanding where the needs are. And I think we're in a good spot to see how 2018 shapes up, South by Southwest and beyond. And then also, as I got a couple of my enrolled founders here right now, I am the managing director for the Founder Institute. So it's a early stage accelerator. It's a founder training program. We teach entrepreneurs how to become leaders and build enduring companies. And it's here at Galvanize. We actually have a class tonight, so y'all are getting some early studying and FaceTime with me, which is good. And that's about it. You know, you can follow me at A-Player on Twitter and the Instagrams. There's our stuff right there. But that's about me. So that's why I'm here right now. You know, have been invited. Paul O'Brien, the ringleader with all of MediaTech Week, is a partner with me in FI. So when he's like, "Hey, I got a slot open," I'm like, "Yeah, I guess I could talk. I'll tell y'all some things." So let's get into it now. Let's figure out what you can do with limited resources and just, you know, a knack for, you know, breaking some rules. So let's lace them out first, though. So some ground rules, and each of these stories that I'm going to tell you, one is an inspiration, two are mine. Follow these 3 kind of ground rules, which is basically, one, know your story. This isn't a branding class. You know, that's a different talk altogether. But if you understand your story, it'll help you figure out everything else after that. And you got to own that story. You know, you're gonna be the one that tells that. Don't let other people tell your story. You're the only one that can really do that. And if you know it, you can tell it to anyone from any background, at any time, in any way, 1,000 different times. But it's always going to make them feel the same way. So know your story. That's the first thing. Know what you want to get out of that story when you tell it. Next thing is, know where your audience is. So you'll also see, again, these patterns in these 3 stories I'll tell you, where the audience needs to be there. I mean, if you're telling your story to the wrong people, it's not going to have the same effect or the same results that you want. So I know this is kind of like, it's a little nebulous, a little broad, but these are basic marketing and branding 101 kind of concepts that, when you apply them in these interesting ways, really, really create some cool shit. You know, and on top of that, you know, rule number 3 is, you know, keep that network around you hyper aware. You know, a brand is a story at scale, and to do that, you know, you're not alone in that story either. There's no solo missions of these stories. So the people that are around you that help you, that want to be a part of this, that share that story with you, they're the most important piece, because that's the only way you're going to execute these basically stunts in an effective way that's going to get that story out at scale. And then lastly, because just inherently this guerrilla marketing term, it's just pictured. You're the Viet Cong. They also invented guerrilla warfare. Just sitting in the bushes, waiting for something to just rustle out, and you're going to take it. It could be in the middle of the night, could be first thing in the morning, could be in the middle of a pitch. Who knows? But you have to be hyper aware, cognizant of it, and be able to capitalize on that opportunity as soon as it happens, because it's fleeting. And that's what you can't plan them out as much as you want. You can't plan these out too far down the line, because things will change, and an opportunity will leave you too. So you will see this. So let's get into that first story. I like this one. It's fun. And it's really focused in the beginning of what the music and entertainment industry is really about. It's back in the 60s and the 70s when rock and roll was still kind of fighting its way through that LSD haze. People were it was all about the music. It was all about just sharing that music with cool people and finding that community. There was no internet. Again, like the topic itself that was on Paul's website is like using tech for music brands. It's not really tech. Whatever the tech is at the time, use it. I'm not going to tell you about Snapchat or Facebook or email marketing at all. It's just use what's in front of you. And this story is a really good push to that. Anybody know who these two people are?
Alice Cooper.
Yeah. At the time, his name was Vince. Shep Gordon.
Yeah.
Shep Gordon. So at the time, this guy, his name was Vince. Alice Cooper was just this moniker. He's a weirdo. Everybody hated his music. But Shep met him through Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin. Push it. Gotta push it, man.
I tried so hard.
You made it, man.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're good. Have a seat. What's your name?
Sky.
What do you do? Sky, what's up? What do you do, Sky?
What do I do?
Yeah.
Pop up late to things.
Yeah.
I'm a pop artist
Okay.
and songwriter.
Yeah. So what brings you here today?
I feel like there's always something you can learn every day.
I like that. Cool.
It seemed like you know what you're doing, so I figured I'd listen to your...
Well, hopefully. Well, we're just getting into the first story, so you came at the perfect time.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah. So as you see right here, this is what these two people. The man in the striped shirt is Alice Cooper, or his name is Vince, but became Alice Cooper with the help of that fuzzy dude with the unlit cigarette in his mouth, Shep Gordon, who is he wrote the book on talent management. Anybody that's in talent management now just kind of follows that rule book. He broke into several different industries after kind of really bringing American rock and roll artists to the forefront. Basically birthed the entire celebrity chef industry. Redid all of Groucho Marx's finances before he died. He's got a really good story. He made breakfast for the Dalai Lama for a while. Again, it's an amazing story. The guy's a brilliant storyteller. But for this particular moment in time, if we all think about 1972, when Alice was really starting to build up some steam, Schools Out just came to the forefront. It peaked at #2 on the Billboard charts that year, and he was about ready to break out onto his UK tour. Nobody in London gave a shit about Alice Cooper. Thought he was a weirdo, and Shep specifically had already pulled a crazy stunt to get Alice that far up onto the charts already. Basically, bought a bunch of paper panties, wrapped them around the original Schools Out album, and again, the story for Alice was very simple. You wanted to piss off every single parent in the country. If you pissed off every single parent in the country, the people, his audience, their kids, high school, middle school, would buy every single album because it was the anti-moral compass that their parents would just whip them into shape for. So the first stunt they really did was this paper panty stunt. And the actual album jacket was in the shape of an old school desk, you know, with the little, you fold it up and you had all this stuff. So the premise for that was, you know, what would a cool bad boy in school have that would make him the coolest kid in school? Panties. So it worked. Again, this is outdated time. We're in different times these days. It wouldn't work now. But it worked then. And that's what made Alice Cooper popular for the first time in the US. Couldn't do that stunt again in the UK. It was already done. So what do they do now? And at this point, 1972, the rock mecca is London. It still is. You know, the Beatles, just every single British rocker that was big. You had to make it there if you're going to be a rock and roll star around the world. So what does Shep do? He works with their labels at Warner Brothers, the UK team, and they have a really great publicist now. Again, they're picking up some steam. But again, the public doesn't care. And they've booked a 10,000 person venue, Wembley Arena. They've only sold 500 tickets with less than a week to go before the show. Oh, this is going to be bad. It's going to be real bad. So what does Shep do? It goes back to that story. I want to piss off every single person in authority. And that's what's going to make Alice cool with the people that he wants to fill up those seats. So they've been working on some creative stuff. Alice Cooper is just a weirdo, always wearing weird stuff. The music ain't even that good yet. It took him a lot much longer of golfing and drinking beer to really figure it out. Alice Cooper's a really good golfer, by the way. And they went through some photo shoots with like a high fashion photographer, and Shep is sitting there with his publicist going, "Oh, this is a great one." Basically, there's no, Alice Cooper's wrapped in a boa constrictor, just butt naked, and they're like, "This is perfect. This is perfect. Let's use this." British sensibilities. This is totally going to piss people off. But how are you going to get that in front of a lot of people? So they find a sympathetic truck driver. You know, those typical ones you see during South by Southwest, big billboard on the sides, on both sides, sandwich board kind of thing. So they blow up this photo of Alice with the details of the Wembley Arena show, and basically tell this truck driver to go to Piccadilly Circle, which is a very high traffic. If y'all been on it, Piccadilly's massive pedestrian thoroughfare. You know, rush hour. It's just you don't want to be stuck there at the wrong time. The truck breaks down and causes a jam for 2 hours in the middle of the week, right after everyone breaks out, and it's just complete madness. Complete madness. People are freaking out. The truck driver early on is just going, "Shit, am I going to get arrested?" Shep's like, "Yeah, maybe, but we'll take care of you." It's all right. And the publicist just knew the right paparazzi people, got them all in the right spot. And the UK was very much more inclined to manufacture the news and actually go find the news, so they just knew where to be. They just knew where to be. Snapped the right photos, pissed off the right people, and the next day, they make the front page. They hate him. They hate him. An MP is calling for them to be banned permanently out of the UK. And yeah, there's always a typical moral righteous person of the time. She's calling the BBC to completely disavow them. He's terrible. But what did Shep think about his audience, and what was he trying to do? Make sure that they were the ones that knew that, oh crap, my parents hate this guy. He must be cool. They sell out from 500 tickets to 10,000 at the end of that afternoon. And the rest is history for him. They blow out that show. He goes on a world tour, and Alice Cooper really becomes this kind of worldwide sensation. That was one of Shep's very first out-of-the-park stunts. And granted, he was already a little bit further down the line. He was very humble on the connections he already had, but he was thinking really outside conventional norms, the traditional stuff. He's like, it's okay to piss people off, as long as I'm pissing off the right people. Because if I do that, it'll make my real audience tune in, because they also think the same way. So, how did he do it? And you'll see these patterns again. He mobilized his network. He had buy-in from the top, the people that basically were going to be writing Alice's checks anyway, the label. He got the people who knew kind of the ecosystem and wherever he was. So specifically, this was London, the UK, and all of that. So he had his publicist who knew what was what, talked to the right people who could get him into the paper, write those right headlines, those kind of things. And then again, found a space where you get maximum exposure, so large bodies of people. And getting noticed by the right people. I originally had piss off the right people, but it's just only applicable for this particular story. Get in front of the right people. So these right people were the wrong ones. Counterintuitive. But those are the ones that, buy the paper, they're going to talk about this at dinner, that are going to tell their kids, you better not go to that show. I'm like, screw you, Dad, I'm going to go to the show. And then they owned every single bit of coverage. Even that lady who was just saying, he's the devil, and he's going to ruin all of the, a generation of morals for our children. They owned that too. He sent her flowers every hour for like 3 weeks straight. Saying thank you. That was the best publicity I've gotten yet. Wow. He owned all of it. Owned all that coverage. And this was pre-social media. Imagine what would have happened. And they owned it then. You can own it too. You just have to understand the mediums and the channels that they get distributed on. So, that's story 1. Let's talk about story 2. How do we mobilize? And as I showed you on my bio, I started a couple companies. My very first one was right after Google. It was with a fellow event producer. I'm an event producer, Sky. And we basically wanted to build a software platform for people like me, event producers, to connect with vendors, service providers, talent, kind of book them through this online portal, such that it would make it a lot easier. One, it would expand the digital network that we had. It would, we'd be able to own all the data, and we'd be able to kind of just track everything simultaneously. I drew a little jellyfish, made up the name, and we called it Jellify. And it was a very, very fun couple years. I bootstrapped the whole thing. I had a lot of Google Cash, so we did it. And one of the very first things we would do is just, we throw, couple bi-monthly events, to connect with more vendors. We just jump on anything we could do, try to get as much photos and videos of each of these events as possible. But, one day we're sitting, we're hanging out at my partner's place, and just kind of brainstorming about what the next event is, because we're kind of just sitting on a rut. We didn't have anything really coming up. It's about early September of that year, 2012. I'm a social media guy. I'm very hyper aware into what's going on the pulse, pop culture wise. And there was this Korean pop star just totally blowing up Reddit just earlier that week. And I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm just looking at it. And I'm telling Courtney, my partner, you see this? You see this? She's like, yeah, I don't get it. I'm like, I don't know. It's a weird dance. It's odd, but it's really catchy, and it seems like the internet's freaking out about it. And I'm like, that'd be cool if we had a flash mob. And she's like, we should do a flash mob. I'm like, we're going to do a fucking flash mob, y'all.
Did you start the flash mobs?
So, what we did was, I started tapping into my network. Courtney had some, sponsors and service providers. Vitamin Water was kind of big at the time. Deep Eddy was still a private company. They didn't sell yet, so we had some connections there, and we also had some friends in West 6 that were sympathetic to kind of this idea we were playing with. And I also had a buddy from my Google days who really looked like this pop star. And I'm like, hey, Alan, you still got that tuxedo from the wedding last month? And he's like, yeah, I do. Cool. This was maybe on a Wednesday. We had an intended day of that Sunday. And, we started just kind of putting some feelers out there. We already had a couple of these sponsors on board. We had an area, we had about a full square block area of venues that were cool with what we were going to do. It's only going to last, 3-5 minutes. And we had maybe about a couple dozen people that were already kind of jazzed up. Like, all right, this is all right, I'm freaking out. This is kind of cool. This thing won't get out of my damn head anyway, so what do? We get it, a couple dozen people turn into a few dozen, turn into a few scores, to all of a sudden, we're practicing. We have vitamin water over there. You can see me kind of just like getting people, all right, you do this, you get bounce around. But 300 people show up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on September 30th of that day. And we have a freaking flash mob to Gangnam Style. And mind you, we don't really know what the hell we're doing. Like we finally got everybody together that noon that day. Like, we had the vitamin water people there, the owners of like Wahoo's Fish Taco come down, like, oh shit, y'all really got some things going. People are just kind of parking out now, waiting. Like, again, at this time, Facebook advertisement was shitty. So we just had to set up like these secret Facebook groups. And this is what happened. Like, one person would tell two would tell four. And it really wasn't the fact that, Jellify was doing something. It was we were piggybacking on this other larger pop cultural reference that everyone was already kind of geeking out on. If we had done it 2 weeks later, it would have been old hat. But we had done it just within that week. So we capitalized on that momentum right before it really got old. And it also happened that my buddy Alan looked just like Cy. But 300 people show up. If we had stayed there maybe like another 5-6 minutes, the cops would have came out and we would have gotten an unlawful assembly charge. But again, just the timing of the song was long enough that we got a good amount of buzz. And everybody that wanted to like download and see the video later on, we gated on the website. So we get email addresses that way. Now, we had about 300 people show up. Maybe 90 or so actually participated in it. The rest were just spectators. They were just there because they heard something cool was going to happen. And they wanted to be a part of it or document it. We actually had the fire department split us up right down that street. It was right in between the Wahoo's is still there, I believe, and then the old Kung Fu. But that whole block was just packed with people. Packed. And when we think about what happened, we kind of failed on a couple things too. We didn't get a lot of stuff done yet, right? We planned it in about 5 days. 2, you saw that vitamin water truck. That was actually like a mobile like DJ spot. So when you open up that door, a bunch of big speakers would blast music out, and they'd hand out vitamin water everywhere. Now, one thing that we didn't realize is that their decibel level wasn't that great. And when we'd play the song and we'd crank it all the way up to 12, the speakers would cut out. So halfway through the song, it cut out like 2 or 3 times. And all you'd hear were these people kind of just trotting. But the thing was, nobody remembered that. They just remembered the crowd. And when we played the video, we dubbed over the Gangnam Style crap. I'm not playing the video now because I don't want to get that in your head for the rest of the day. I definitely don't want to do that. Yeah, no, you're welcome. Me too. I've just been watching the damn video on freaking mute the whole time. But it was ridiculous. The guy in the white up there, he's a radio personality who also did a random reference that morning before he went on the air. Like, hey, after your Sunday fun day at 3 o'clock, kind of thing. So again, well-placed references too. And understanding, mobilizing network. He was always a great MC for our events. He's still there. I think he's on KLBJ now, CJ Morgan. He does like morning shows, I think, or evening, I forget, also the radio. But, got a lot of sympathetic people saying, hey, this sounds freaking cool. Let me help. Let me blast it to my network. It wasn't just me and Courtney sitting in that room at the end of the day. Yeah, we kind of just said, that sounds like a cool idea. Let's fucking do it. But we had to amplify that. We had to tell 2 more people each so that they could tell 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. And that's what happened. 5 days. 300 people. And we got about 1,000 email captures from that too. But you really think about the technology piece, think about the marketing. And then all the other people that want to be a part of it. We had other owners from down the street come up like, what the hell are y'all doing? Why didn't you do this in front of MySpace? Here's a card. Let's do an event next time. Those kind of things. Because that's this kind of organic publicity. We got onto the nightly news that evening. Like a random, K-View truck just showed up out of nowhere, took some footage. They wrote about us in the Statesman the next day too. Random Gangnam Style flash mob. Again, it was that stupid song was hot shit for like 2 weeks. But we got there in week 1. So that pattern, we mobilized the network. And I'm not the sponsor guy, but we had a couple people that were the sponsor people that provided us some of the infrastructure. We leveraged all those strengths. I don't have the megaphone. CJ had the megaphone on the radio. I just knew how to blast some stuff out and create interesting secret Facebook groups and events. And that's where we kind of really leveraged the initial outreach. We got in front of a large amount of people. That this was our Piccadilly circus. Just for all intents and purposes. No one got arrested this time, which is good. Could have. Again, you need permits when you get that many people all in the same space all at once. But we dispersed very quickly. And then we got noticed by the right people. So those same service providers, venues, and all the people that were working in these bars and entertainers that were up and down that street were like, hey, what are y'all about? And we'd tell them what we were doing. And we're like, oh, that'd be great. How do I sign up? Well, we're still working on the website. So give us your email address and we'll give you an announcement. Bam. We had some buzz, and people started talking about us a lot more. And then we owned every single piece of coverage, even the bad shit, even the bad stuff. We didn't get any negative press this time, but we still took every single bit we could find. I was Googling and Googling and Googling for 48 hours straight, see if anything trickled out, and then we shared it. We thanked those people for writing about us, positive, negative, whatever. And then we got free tacos at Wahoo's for like a month straight.
Nice.
But that's story number 2, and it wasn't perfect, but it worked, and it did what we wanted to do. We wanted to get in front of those people. That was our audience, and how do we build on top of that? So we took everything that we learned from that Gangnam Style stunt. We kept that network close because now they're like, what's the next thing? What are y'all going to do next? I don't know. We were working on some fashion show stuff, so we were starting to really get plugged in with the photographer and model industry here in town. F1 just launched that year too, so we were kind of really tied up with them as well. So it was giving us actually some paid work. We're actually getting some traction. Putting our brand out there and putting them next to very reputable other brands. If it wasn't for stunts like that, we wouldn't have gotten our foot in the door because we had actually stuff to reference now. Like, hey, check out this, K-View video. This is what we did. They're like, oh, that's cool. You want to put a casting call together for us? Sure, let's do that. But nothing really stuck from, end of September through the rest of that winter. And, Jellify's, picking up. We're really just still a damn logo and a name and an email list. And I'm on the back end. I also had much longer hair back then. But, and you'll see where that fits in a minute. But, I'm sitting in a coffee shop on like a Tuesday night, which was usually my go-to spot. I lived in coffee shops. This was like, again, this place didn't exist. Co-working wasn't really a thing back then. And I was doing what I do. It was just trawling feeds, looking for the next potential thing we could jump on. And I stumble onto a tweet, which sends me to a blog post, which sends me to a Craigslist ad, which introduces me to a producer trying to create an interesting TV concept. Just so happened to be with MTV. And really kind of looking for some, like a couple friends that are looking to start a fun business. I'm like, go and check. Maybe have a kind of interesting female co-founder as a lead. I'm like, oh, Courtney, perfect. Check. And maybe y'all like to do events. I'm like, check, check, check. This is great. Like, let's keep talking. I basically ghost write an email on her behalf, and I shoot it over to this guy. And within 48 hours, he's flown over here because he loves our story. He loves kind of the stuff we've seen and shared on social media. He's like, all right, y'all got some little traction. Y'all have interesting. Y'all look good on camera. Let's talk a little more. And by the end of that day that he was in town, we got greenlit for an MTV show that was called on friends starting a business. You can Google this, MTV True Life. I'm starting a business with my friends. And I became a ghost producer for this. But if I wasn't sitting in that coffee shop, I'd have missed that tweet. And I know there was a whole bunch of other people applying for that too. But I saw the tweet as soon as it came out. It gave me to the Craigslist post that came out maybe a few hours before that. It got me in front of that producer well before anybody else. So I had a chance to own the conversation before anybody else could. So what do we have to do? He flies in for 48 hours, meets us, says, all right, we got something going. I'll be back in like 2 weeks. Figure out the next 6 weeks after that. Oh, shit. We've been going week to week. I'm like, now, how do we figure this out? So I have to effectively draft a 3-act show over the course of the next 6 weeks. You know, it's a typical story arc. You know, just Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And you know, how do we frame that? What do? We go straight up and we do another little stupid flash mob. But this was much smaller, you know, jazzercise kind of thing. Kind of frames a story. And our producer, who I believe, I don't know, he's not in there, but just one guy, has 2 cameras. Like really had this ninja setup. Usually MTV comes out with like 2 camera guys, a producer, and a sound person. You know, a 4-person crew. It was just him. Which made it a lot easier to kind of, you know, actually be yourself instead of just having this whole crew behind you. But he's like, you need to bring me a story. So I'm the one really kind of working on this script, you know, back and forth recording. I'm like, all right, well, Act 1 is we need money, obviously. We still need money. Let's go to, like, I'm bootstrapping myself. And Courtney comes from a pretty nice family. So we go to her dad, and he's like, nope, I'm giving you money. Go find money elsewhere. Act 1. Act 2 is a little funny because I have strong relationships in the startup scene at this point, you know, with just my background, and I reach out to the only real place that's not really co-working, but you know they're trying to position themselves as a startup capital in town. So I reach out to the leadership team there, and we go, hey, we got this thing we're working on. It's going to be on TV. And it's about us trying to start this business. Would y'all be interested in like kind of being the second act for us? Maybe we'll pitch you, give us some feedback. And at the time they were really trying to build up this brand. So they're like, yes, we want every kind of piece of press we can get. So we do that. And we go to Capital Factory. That's where it was. And we go and pitch in front of Josh Baer, in front of a bunch and 2 of his other friends. And they just eviscerate us. Like Act 2 is supposed to be shitty, and you got to root for the losers in Act 2, and that's what they do. We're sweating. We don't know what that we can't articulate anything. We're nervous. This is our first real pitch session, and it's on camera. But we have to own that. We knew it was going to be bad. We didn't know how bad it was going to be, but it was. It was bad. They were telling us our name was crap, the logo's stupid, how you going to make money. Again, there was a lot of things that we still needed to work out. We weren't ready for that, but we had to do it. It was going to be part of the story. Simultaneously, that was, as painful as that was, we knew that was coming, and we just had to own it and roll with that. We knew that Act 2 in the story of that show was going to be bad too, but yeah, you had to own it and roll with it. But simultaneously, because of this MTV bug, we're telling people like, hey, we're working on this show, would you like to be a part of it? We're also timing this perfectly with the beta launch. So while we're getting to do all this fun stuff, I'm hammering away on a product on the back end, trying to just get some semblance of a beta out. And the climax for Act 3 was going to be rolled into our launch party. So what a better time? What a better time to do it? The same service providers, the same 3 that we had, Deep Eddy, Wahoo's, and like Vitamin Water from that flash mob in September is like, yeah, we want to be a part of this next one. This sounds really big. And, I was pretty astute onto the venue scene here in town. So there's a venue that opened up, Ross's Hall. It was just like about a month old, less than that. So we got it on dirt rate cheap. Basically, we wanted to put on like a $100,000 event for 10% of that, which is basically what we did. And everybody wanted to just be a part of this MTV movement. And everybody wanted that MTV exposure. MTV hadn't been in town since that Real World back in like 2005. So it was like kind of a big deal at that moment. Again, there was a lot of production benefits in Texas overall, and Austin was a really hot place to shoot that. So we were riding that way. So we organized our launch party around this. It's a big venue. 1,400 people show up. And if we had not done these kind of like systematic stuff before then, we probably would have had a couple hundred. But we packed the whole damn place out. We invited the right people. You know, we took every connection we started building through those few months, from the fashion industry to the music industry and back, and just said, this is going to be the coolest freaking event you'll be all year at. And it was. It really freaking was. It was a total sideshow of fashion. There was, you know, we had like 3 different fashion shows. We had a lingerie one, we had like a high fashion one, then we had some of our own crazy designs. Again, you can go on this on YouTube. It's all there. But the buzz was palpable, and every single person, every performing act, every photographer, every model that we had involved with this event, caterers, sponsors, we also simultaneously signed up and walked through the platform. Every single one of those people that walked into the door, we captured their email addresses, we got them signed up on it. We had demo stations. We had like 4 or 5 demo stations where our interns, people just said, I want to be a part of this. And we just had free interns just coming up saying, yeah. I'm like, so I'd walk them through the platform and we just sign up users. We got 1,000 users that day. And again, it was a total crazy sideshow, shit show of a good time. And it was also the climax to the MTV show. We had just happened to have a conversation with Microsoft. So they have an accelerator program called the BizPark program. And the leader of that BizPark program came in for Act 3, and at the very end, we're having this fun time having a conversation with him, going, yeah, you're great, you're awesome. Are we rolling? Yeah, you're in. And we actually got into the program that way. They gave us free Azure support for an entire year, which is, you know, about $120,000 worth of cloud support for that program. So getting chewed out by Josh Baer was totally worth it. Because in the end, when we launched the platform, which we were going to time with the actual debut of the show, we knew we were going to get some traffic. You know, annually, 35 million viewers tune into a single episode of True Life. These things we didn't know. But we executed well. And every single little step of the way was not necessarily planned. It was just keep rolling with it, seize it, and then you can figure out how to work with it ever. But if you just say no and you let it go, it'll pass you by. So, again, how do we do it? We carpe those fucking diems. We seize the opportunities. We mobilized our network, and at this point, the network got a lot bigger. And but just have to constantly keep them hyper aware. You have to constantly be telling them. Yeah, the thing I run into a lot with people in event production sponsorship is that, you know, once you get the money, you forget to update these people that gave you the money. You got to constantly be checking in with them, constantly bringing them value, constantly telling them about other things they could be a part of once the thing that they initially gave you a little bit of cash for is about. Same thing goes with startups, and then you get that seed funding. You got to be updating your investors over and over again. You forget about that. You have to keep them in the loop. But that applies to everything. Like I find too many similarities in startup brands and music brands, which is why I opened up with the Alice Cooper bit. Because again, we're not musicians, but we work with musicians, and we do events that are centered around music and other forms of entertainment. And you know, in the end, you know, when you're telling stories like this, you want to make people feel something. And if you're a performing artist, it's all centered around an event. I mean, that's how you get in front of max amount of people. You probably know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's where you shine.
Where all your money comes from.
That's where all your money comes from. That's right. That's how you teach it at scale. So once you figure out that network and you understand who's strong at what, you leverage that. You champion them for it. You make it their idea. And when you do that the right way, you know, the crowd of people will come. And then you can really focus on who you really want to tap into. Maybe who you want to piss off that time. We pissed off a couple people at this party. You know, like people in the high fashion industry, like, oh, it was so gaudy, and da-da-da-da, and like they were writing about us and stuff. I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's good. We own that. Own that. Because it was a crazy freaking event. It was definitely one of the better ones I've ever thrown. And once we got all that, you know, we owned it again. And then the show debuted, you know, 5 months later. And it was rough. It was kind of a rough thing. If you watch it, I don't really talk much. I really don't. At the end of the day, we would just be, I'd be looking at dailies with the producer going, ugh. He's like, yeah, I like you too much. I'm just going to cut you out of a lot of stuff. So I'm just kind of blinking when dumb shit would be said, just like, I'm seriously watching. But it built up a lot. Yeah, it gave us everything that we were doing felt right, and a lot of people that I work with now for A Player were also involved with me at Jellify because the energy was there. It was energy that I got and I learned at my time at Facebook. Just this, you're a part of something big. If you can tell, and it was all around that story and the energy behind it. So when you own that and you make it yours, basically make your own Kool-Aid, you can really, own the narrative again, own your story. And when other people tell it for you, it's still your story. But if you do it the other way around, let other people tell your story, you'll never own it. I know that sounds a little weird, but it's true, and you just kind of feel it when it's there. Events are always a big part of my life, and it's a big part of my business. So doing that, doing events at scale like this is telling your brand story at scale. As if those people that went to your event the next day wake up with that feeling, you did your job. If they don't wake up with anything, you didn't. So that's that. I think about got about 10 minutes for questions. Thank you. Appreciate it. But yeah, you can follow me online. aplayermedia.com is my website.
Do you have an Instagram?
Yeah.
Oh. I just like to hear you talk.
Thank you. But was this valuable at all? Was this interesting a little bit?
Yes.
Make you laugh?
Yeah.
Is that the same thing on YouTube too? Because I typed in your name.
No. So we never got funding with Jellify, unfortunately.
Okay.
Jellify folded at the end of that year. I was already kind of running on fumes. I'd spent every dime I had making this thing work, but we just couldn't figure out how to scale it the right way. When the MTV show aired, which was like the 1st of June that summer, we got 30,000 users that first day. Within the first hour.
Wow.
Because I was watching the Google Analytics when the show came out. I mean, I knew the show was going to be bad already. It was just going to make us look awful. It's MTV. Come on, it's shit junk food TV. But that was the audience we wanted to tap into. No.
So I think for bands, B2C companies, guerrilla marketing makes a ton of sense. I want to more of a B2B. I can work with agencies, and brands, marketers.
Sure.
Every little bit of me wants to go scream from the rooftop, like, hey, check this cool shit out, because that's like, I've been in a band since I was 16, that's how my mind works, but
sure.
It doesn't necessarily translate as well, and I think in my business now, doing B2B, like, it's much more about being, in a closed, kind of like, we're here full service to be here for you, and it's not as much about getting as many people in the mix, it's about getting the right people in the mix. What advice would you have from a guerrilla market perspective for a B2B company?
Executive buy-in. So as I was telling about that Shep Gordon story, they wouldn't have been able to do any of that had they had not gotten the head of the UK Warner Brothers division on board. And at that point, that guy didn't even really know who Alice Cooper was. It was like 3 bottles of wine in at midnight before they finally even scratched the surface on Alice Cooper. But if they didn't get that really well-refined man, on board right off the bat, they wouldn't have gotten any other traction over there. So you have to go with the top. I mean, you may have like a director or manager of marketing you work with on a daily basis, but it's not as much as you're going to convince them that it's a great idea. They're going to have to convince 2 other levels of people for the same thing. So if you can effectively make it those 2 rungs ideas, if it's their idea, not yours, again, that's where you start achieving that critical mass. And my experience in corporate, in the corporate world, I did a lot of conference, like high tech conferences for a while after Jellify. Was that, but you have to develop the relationships first. One, you can't piss off your counterpart on that side by going over their head. So you really have to focus on that relationship. Again, figure out what's going to make them look really good, and then seed that idea such that even though it's your idea, it's better if it comes out as theirs. And if they can convince their boss and their boss's boss that was actually their idea, then everybody looks great. Is that helpful?
Absolutely.
Cool.
So this is a huge coincidence for me. Like, I didn't even know you were going to be here today. I saw you on the list. And the reason this is huge for me is I run a sailing-related business, and I've never done an event before but about a month ago, I decided to do an event. And I've been doing all of this sort of amateur stuff, trying to figure out how to publicize an event. So at a minimum, you and I should probably talk afterwards, but basically, I'm bringing this documentary movie to Austin that basically hasn't been released publicly. The filmmaker is doing like city by city releases, like at a museum in one city, or a yacht club in another, or a historical society in some other place. And so I got in touch with the director, and I was like, hey, why don't I be the guy who does it in Austin? So I'm looking at renting a venue, doing all of this stuff. And anyways, so it's very relevant. I had no idea you were going to even talk about this stuff.
Well, yeah, that was helpful. I'm not sure which one that was, but yeah, sure you can push it. It's all good.
But yeah, I'll just tell you briefly, the movie, it's about traditional shipbuilding. So, it's kind of a narrow niche. If you're into boating and sailing, it's a gorgeous, beautiful movie. And I'm planning to stage it, if I can get sponsorship, because it's expensive, at the Bob Bullock Museum.
Ooh.
And my angle there is, it's a gorgeous venue. It's kind of a premium experience. It's like this it's a well laid out facility and all that.
Yeah.
So, any ideas?
Yeah, we can connect a little bit after this and talk more
cool.
about it. I do actually. I was working on an event earlier this week at the Austin Film Society.
Oh yes.
Yeah, which just opened up too. So there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll just talk a little more.
Yeah, basically what I did this morning is I not printed out, but I copied my list of like my entire phone directory into a spreadsheet and just was like, okay,
You gotta start
calling people.
Mobilize your network.
Yeah.
There you go.
But thanks for coming.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, thank y'all. Anybody else?
I think I might miss the mark on exactly what guerrilla marketing is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like you're trying to do something like mass and reach a lot of people with some kind of sparking idea. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Alice Cooper's story is a little bit different than the world we live in today, whereas you kind of buy into a concept on social media, whether that's like a hot guy is shirtless and then sells his music on the side, because that's what people want to see on Instagram. They want to see, a certain kind of lifestyle or a certain kind of photography. Like, that's just kind of the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're in a niche market in which you have to find those people, and which takes a lot more effort and time than just the typical certain things that people expect. How would you apply some of those techniques across social media platforms today? As far as
Again, it's a good question. So, and I know the actual topic that was online was kind of misleading. Using tech for, guerrilla marketing, using tech for startup brands and music. Where I think I said it before you walked in, but
sorry again.
No worries. Which is it's good to repeat. The medium is irrelevant. I think that's something that's most important. The medium is absolutely irrelevant. For Alice, it was the evening newspaper and the morning newspaper. That was their Instagram. That was their Facebook. The real-time feed was those people in Piccadilly Circus just looking at this shit happen. Like, imagine if it was the Snapchat generation and everyone just went live. Like, there's a naked dude. Like, they would be doing that. So, again, that's about knowing where your audience is. So if your audience is Instagram, how do you create a FOMO moment, but also organize it through that medium? Like, maybe you have a bunch of people that you constantly are talking to on Instagram on the messenger side that are also about this, and you want to organize something. That could be a channel where you're organizing something, a critical mass, but it has to be in real life. Again, the guerrilla marketing piece is an in real life experience. And the medium, the owning the coverage, is what's shared about it. It's the earned stuff. You get the right people together through that medium, whatever it is. I'm just using Instagram because you gave it to me. And they share it. They live stream it. They keep posting about it for weeks on end. And that's what guerrilla marketing is. But it all starts with a real life experience. It starts with that feeling. You get it. There's an artificial feeling that you get off of Instagram, but it takes a real world, some kind of real world activity to even generate it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can talk a little bit more about it. Again, I'm here for the rest of the day.
Cool.
But yeah. Anybody else? Well, that's 4 o'clock on the dot, y'all. That was the first time I actually gave that talk, so I'm glad it came on time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. If y'all want to sync up with me a little bit later, I'm I'm gonna publish all this stuff online, and then once I edit it up and all that, in the week hopefully. So if you want to share with me some email addresses, I can share you. I can also tell you all about like the events that we're working on, like moving forward. I'm helping Jeremy with the Gree stuff. He didn't touch on that, but yeah, December 3rd is the next showcase at the Continental, 3 to 7, Sunday afternoon.
You gonna be upstairs or downstairs?
That's cool, didn't you?
Downstairs.
Awesome.
Are you
Yeah.
local?
What's the name of the band?
Are you local also?
What's that?
Yeah, here in San
We
Antonio.
just put on
That's what you know.
just a Sunday, Soulful Sundays. They have like a little jam band going on down there.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, there's a
Lily
lot.
Pipkin group.
No, Trevor Four-Wheeler.
Okay, cool. I live right at the State House, so I'm
Oh,
always
nice. Yeah. Well, you're right there. Come on by.
I will be there.
What kind of music do you play?
Oh man, everything.
Yeah.
I'm a drummer, man. You throw me on.
Oh,
it's
right,
like,
right, yeah.
There you go. Well, right on, y'all. Again, thanks y'all for coming.
Yeah.
I'll be lingering for a little bit, so if y'all need anything, I'm just gonna be
Yeah.
breaking down this camera equipment. Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.